You're good. Hi guys. As Nikki said, sometimes drinking buddy, but he was lying. It's every day, but we're very proud of it. We're very proud of it. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Mickey Callahan. I'm the UK ambassador for women, formerly known as Women in Immersive Technologies, and we just relaunched on Monday into Women in Industries of Tomorrow. Next year is our 10-year anniversary, so we're really, really, really excited about this fresh chapter in our NGO, which is registered right here in the heart of Brussels. And these objectives that we are looking to do, we know that I think in this room and across the conference have been very successful in democratizing. The word immersive is everywhere, so if you've ever put a desk or a chair in your room using Amazon or IKEA, where outdoor giant pixelated screens happening in shopping centers and location-based technologies and AR in your Snapchats and things like that. So we know that we needed to kind of pivot. We were looking into the Gartner reports around, where are these trends coming into play? So we knew we needed to stay on point and stay on top of these trends. Welcome, sir. Come on in. I won't call everybody out. That'll take ages, right? So in addition to being integrated with what we stand for in immersive technologies and extended realities, AR, VR, spatial audio, we are also going to be concentrating on verticals around things like space, AI embodiment, quantum, looking at climate tech, and of course, healthcare, femtech, which is where we bring this panel into play. We've been really honored and privileged to be part of Stereopsia, AWE, and AIXR for many, many, many years, and they've been super awesome supporters on what we stand for, which is really uniting our communities to really raise the voices of females, those who identify as females, and non-binaries, to make sure that there are opportunities not only on stage, but in their careers, from a startup to the C-suites and leadership roles, and also embracing our male allyship, not only from drinking buddy mode to business and beyond. So we produced 3 series of sessions at this edition of the first edition of United XR. Our first one yesterday was around XR in space. If you caught that, that was pretty mind-blowing. We had a 6 degrees of female 6th-off session this morning, and the last in our hat trick of WIIT produced sessions is this session today, focusing on the femtech, sextech, and health tech sectors that we're looking to do in Women in Industries of Tomorrow. So it's my absolute pleasure to introduce to the stage. Are we ready for United XR? Round of applause, please. With Regina van Tongeren, who is our Dutch ambassador. Can I help you? There we go. Keep the applause going as we help him on this step. And Emma AHLERT, who's the founder of Elsie, female and sexual healthcare, and we're going to be looking at how XR and AI are rewiring desire, empathy, and human connection. And I think you're going to be very surprised by what these 2 brilliant ladies are going to be discussing today. So sit back and enjoy the show.
Thank you so much. I don't have hands enough. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Regina. I'm the proud Dutch ambassador for Women in Industries of Tomorrow. And next to that, I'm also a marketeer. I do marketing in XR and games. And I also teach marketing. And from that perspective, I became really interested in how technology and humans interconnect, how our relationship with technology is, but also how we relate to each other through technology. And I think we are at a very pivotal time in history at the moment, with AI rising, with XR becoming social. So that's a very interesting point in time that I hope we can give you some inspiration for today. And I'm very happy that Emma is here to join me, because as you see, we were actually supposed to be here with 3 of us, but sadly, Karin cannot be here. So we brought our little notes, good old-fashioned handwritten notes, to help us along the way, because we wanted to take her ideas along as well, because she had some pretty cool ideas on how this industry is helping us and bringing inspiration that we could use all around the tech industry.
I'll do an intro as well. I'm Emma. I admittedly do not have a really technical background, which makes this kind of scary for me, but I actually bring in a different perspective, which is my background is teaching healthy relationships and domestic violence prevention training to universities in the US. It was predominantly fraternities and sports teams, and also lots of women as well, but really calling people into these conversations. And then I moved abroad. I did my master's degree in the sociology of emotions, which sounds like a pretend thing, but actually it's becoming more and more in handy. And I did a lot of stuff around digital sociology and about how tech interacts with society and how people interact with tech and others. I do social media for different topics, female and sexual health care, menopause, period care, gut health, sexual wellness. So learning how to talk about these topics, I help companies do that. And then now I run a community for people who work in female and sexual health care. So we do networking events, upskilling, collaboration. So it's a really exciting time to see how tech is changing female and sexual health care and femtech and sex tech. So thanks for having me.
Cool, so we got that out of the way, the intros. Before we start with our talking points, I just wanted to get a bit of a knowledge, a little data test with you guys, because a lot of the times when we talk about sex tech, people have a particular image that it's something involving silicone toys, and it's something that some people do, but I'm not going to do this. So just a raise of hands for anybody who has ever sent a flirtatious text. Keep your hand up, have you ever been on a dating app? Or have you keep your hand up? Or have you ever been on what was the third thing we thought about? I think it was, a picture that you actually sent to somebody that you wouldn't want me to put on the screen here. Be honest. Okay, so I saw a lot of hands. Well, congratulations. So that actually proves that we are all sort of sex tech users. We all use technology to mediate our intimacy, to mediate love, to mediate feelings, etc. And that is what we're here to talk about today. So that's the first taboo. But we have some more taboos and insights we want to share with you, because from my perspective, I got into sex tech a couple of years ago. As a marketeer, I was very interested in what was happening in that sphere. And what surprised me was the way in which there is so much innovation when it comes to independent monetization models, independent and community-driven marketing. And that is something you don't hear about often unless you're actually in that industry. So that's what we want to share with you. And the first taboo is yours.
Yes, so one of the taboos is that sex tech is quite niche. We hear this about femtech as well, but sex tech is more than, as you said, vibrators and porn platforms. There's things about ethics and education. There's a really cool company called Image Angel, and so they help people protect their identity against deepfakes. I see a lot of convergence between femtech and sex tech, so really important conversations around pelvic health and what's the word that I always forget? Biofeedback that sometimes is left out of mainstream healthcare context. So it's really important to remember that sex tech is a really, really broad field, actually, and it's estimated to reach 107 billion by 2030, so it's rapidly growing. So the more that we kind of perceive it as normal, I think the better.
Yeah, that's amazing, because it's valued at 50 billion now, I think, so that's a huge growth potential. But it's in all these sectors. It's not just in the bubbles you probably know, like the toys and the robots and the AI companions, which are new. The second thing, that when I was working, I was getting involved in Berlin in an industry event around sex tech, and what I noticed there are a lot of female, but also queer, and also any other kind of group founders there that were doing stuff that you normally don't expect in this sphere. They were making products and services not just for money, not just for huge growth, but also from their lived experience, because they were missing something. For instance, in healthcare, so, apps for pelvic therapy, for instance, but also prioritizing inclusivity and consent by design, and challenging taboos. One of my favorite ones that is on this slide here is Cindy Gallop, and she has a platform, Make Love Not Porn, that features real videos, real porn videos, not the super produced ones you see on the big platforms. And now she's starting also an academy around that to teach people what real sex is, what normal is, because we see a lot of things happening, especially when you think of Gen Z and their access to porn videos and what they learn from that. And she's countering that. And of course, she's also on the slide, Emma, one of the people I met in Berlin, and she actually won an award this weekend, didn't you? Another one.
What always mentions that.
I'm a marketeer, so I'm very interested in things like monetization and how you reach people. And one of the things I learned from the sextech industry is how they are, because they are at a point where their bank accounts can get shut down at any moment in time. It's weird for us to think about that, but that's the way the industry works in that space. But not just their bank accounts, it's also the algorithm that doesn't like what you're showing. And I'm not only talking about really explicit stuff. I'm also talking about stuff that is really more related to education and health and all the bubbles you saw on the screen before. So if you get demonized, basically, and if your access to platforms is gated, then you become very, very creative. And it's really nice, it's really interesting to see what they are doing in terms of decentralization of information, decentralization of data, but also the different marketing funnels. If you look at, I know, probably some of you know OnlyFans, and there are a lot of creators there that have laid the foundation of how creators are moving now more from scale, where everything bigger and reaching more people was the answer, to more community-driven reach out, and to more of knowing your niche and being very successful in that niche. They started it, and it's now actually becoming a practice in the creator world more broadly. And one thing that I think is very interesting also, if you think about deep fake, deep porn, and stuff that we all will have to deal with, and probably our kids as well. See, I need 3 hands. Is the last one, authenticity. Sextech was one of the first industries where content got stolen, people got duplicated, and things just happened that don't help your business model if you're relying on that. So what they're now doing, they're pioneering all kinds of things to make sure you can see a traceable proof that something is really human instead of AI generated. And I think that's very interesting, looking at all the content we see now on LinkedIn or on Instagram as well. One of the interesting companies there that I think is doing very good stuff is called Image Angel. And it's actually also an example of somebody who started because of what she lived through in her own lived experience. So, actually, what we really came to say is that for us, looking at what we're building together with all of us technologically, we have shared XR spaces. We have AI that's connecting with us on an emotional level, and not just I click, you execute. It's a very different way of communicating with a machine or through a machine. And we have an almost full century stack. Sextech is, of course, very, very active in the world of haptics and zero latency, but there is more going on there, and that means more embodiment and more presence. So for the past 20 years, a lot of technology has always been about speed and scale, and we think we're now at a moment in time where, if you look at development, it's actually very good to also take other things into account, like the human experience, like psychology, ethics, and especially safety. And these are all things that I learned are already being pioneered in Sextech. So I hope after today you're inspired to take a look on Google to see where that is going. But it's a paradox, because we have all this technology and we have all this means of getting more intimate. But on the other hand, I think you know, loneliness is also rising. There's a lot of social distrust. And that is exactly why we need a new way of speaking to each other through machines, but also connecting to machines. So there it is, the almost full century stack. We all know about data and capturing clicks and capturing where people are looking and also touching things maybe online, but there's a lot more that we can capture by now. It's heart rate, skin conductance, all these kinds of things, micro expressions even, all these kinds of things that show your emotions, sometimes even before you know it yourself. And then there is haptics, and of course sextech, it's very important to have zero latency when you talk about haptics. In gaming, I know, it's very annoying when you have a bit of a delay, actually can cost you a championship also. But in intimacy, in intimate conditions, when you are talking to your AI lover or maybe to your own lover through an XR space, it becomes a form of rejection, and it can be really, really not helpful in that experience. So these are three things that are happening in sextech already. And one thing I think is interesting is that, of course, when you talk about intimacy, chemistry is a very important aspect. You know, you have chemistry with someone. And that is also happening. It's not big yet. It's been on the market already, or in development already for a couple of years, I think about 10 years. It's still very experimental. These are not sextech companies, to be honest. They are real companies and universities doing real research. Together they form a new set of way of capturing data. Like I was saying, it's not just clicks and views anymore. There's so much more going on. And the interesting thing, I think, is that right now we have ways of capturing data and seeing our emotions and what you think even before we know it. If you think about micro expressions, they show what you're actually thinking, or they show up before you're actually speaking to somebody. Now just imagine building a system, and it doesn't have to be sextech, it can also be just a shopping page, for instance, where that kind of system is implemented. That becomes very interesting. Now we have that one, I think. So a different kind of data, a lot more data, and I think a lot more, we need to think about that data in different ways, and that's why I was very interested to hear what your views, coming from a different angle than technology, would be on that subject.
Yeah, so as we talked about, sextech is quite a broad sector. So when you're talking about the data that you're capturing can disclose somebody's libido, sexual preferences, fertility, and there's a really interesting situation in the US, well, unfortunate would be the word, where there was a massive data leak with Flow, which is a big period tracking company. So they ended up with Google having to pay $56 million in damages, basically. But they were giving out information about when people were having their cycle, when they were missing their cycle, and in states where abortion is unfortunately criminalized in the US, there was a lot of concern about this data being leveraged to prosecute people. So all data is important in all the different sectors, but this one, the leakage of this data could lead to, interfamilial and interpersonal fallout, workplace harassment, and as I've just said, actually like criminalization as well. So we talked about as well, and everyone will know this as well with data, but the minimalization, so only capturing really what you need, the decentering of where you capture it, so that not one big, scary place has access to all of our sensitive images and when we're ovulating and that sort of thing. And I think just this industry, there, as I've just said, there's so much personal information, but it's one of the least regulated sectors. So, finances and sex and death are the three things that they say all of us have in common, and something. Sorry. Okay. And so finance is something that's really, really heavily regulated, and sex tech is not something that's caught up, but it carries so much risk with it.
Yeah, thank you. And one thing that Karine, who is not here, but I promised to voice her thoughts, what she said when we were preparing for this panel was very interesting, is that I come from technology, so I'm also very concerned about data safety, but I always look at the technical side. And she was telling me how when you are in a system where you have so much biometric data being tracked, where you even tell your darkest secrets maybe to your AI companion, that becomes also, next to the technical safety, you also need a lot of experiential safety. Like, you need to feel safe, and it will become very interesting in the coming years to see how we can build that, because next to having your data centralized or having your own data wallet, what makes you feel safe when you are in an XR experience with somebody or with an AI. Personally, for me, I had to think about this when I saw all these posts lately about AI-driven robots, which turned out not to be AI-driven completely, but still for home, in your home. Not sex bots, just robots helping you with chores in the home. And I was thinking, yeah, well, if these are AI-driven and they are in my home, what are they learning from? What data are they trained on? Are they trained on data that's on the internet, on Reddit, on YouTube? What kind of data on maybe women are they trained on? Do I feel safe having such a robot who is probably 10 times stronger than me or faster, etc.? Having something like that in my house. So I think it will become very important if we think about AI companionship, whether it's with the robots, whether it's for just in your home to help out with chores, but also maybe for more intimate situations to think about where is that robot trained on, and do I feel safe? And of course, one of the big words when we think about feeling safe, especially in the Netherlands, but I think throughout Europe, it has been on the agenda lately, is the word consent. And I think that a lot of people here in the room have seen a lot of news about safety of women, about things happening in law. What is consent? We don't even know what it means in real life sometimes. We don't agree about it. Everybody has their own interpretation. It's always a word that sounds very simple, but when you think about it, it never is. And that is now also going to happen in technology and with technology, whether we are in an XR space, a social XR space, or whether we are talking to an AI companion. What is consent? And how will we get it? And who will decide what consent is? I don't know, if maybe you can add something that you see from your experience in sextech, because I know that your community deals with as well.
Yeah. So yeah, my background was in talking to people about how to have healthy relationships with each other, and a lot of that was clarity of intention, finding words to match what we want, how to have hard conversations, and how to deal with rejection. So I think one of the biggest dangers that we have with this is the programming is to be agreed with. If you've ever used ChatGPT and you say, how is this post for LinkedIn? It'll say, it's the best post I've ever seen. It's so good. It'll get so much engagement. So it's trained to serve us and to serve our own narrative. So when that gets reinforced over and over and over again, then we're often in for a rude awakening when we interact with another person or colleague or friend who inevitably won't agree with everything that we do.
Yeah, actually, when we were researching this panel, I got in touch with Cybrothel in Berlin, which is the first Cybrothel. It's a space where you can have VR experiences, but also with live dolls. And they are also experimenting with AI. And one thing they told me is that the hardest thing for them to implement is that very word consent. Because if you just put AI in a doll or AI in a robot without any guardrails, without any specific training, it just will do anything you want. And that's not the message they want to give. Maybe there is a market, but they don't want to. So I think what for me from a marketing perspective is very interesting, if you look at product marketing in tech in general, is that when you look at sextech and all these things going on about data, safety, feeling safe also, I think that is also very important in what we're building in XR. And from a marketing perspective, that is going to be a very interesting USP, because it's not just about safety, it's about trust. And marketers know this, there's this thing called brand trust. And normally you do this with cool visuals or cool advertising. But I think there is really a space where we can now develop brand trust with another layer of this data security, this feeling safe as well in our experience with technology. I think so. Shall we go to what I think is one of the most interesting parts? Yeah? It's the perfection paradox. Like I was saying, we are building AI companions. There are platforms right now who have monthly over, tens of millions of users. So it's not a small thing anymore. People are falling in love with their AI companions. On the other hand, we also see weddings taking place in VR. We see people partying in VR, dating in social VR. So there is this whole space where yeah, love is expanding and intimacy is expanding, but especially when you look at those AI-driven lovers, there's one thing that they offer that humans cannot do. And I'm just wondering if anybody here can share a thought on what an AI lover offers that humans cannot. Yes?
Thank you for very insightful and thought-provoking speaking on the stage. My name is Ellen. I'm a creator from Norway, and I find that the AI question is very much about what we do not know about ourselves. That it's very easy, and I'm using my word, machine learning, very easy can see. Like if you have a woman, she is changing her attraction during the month, and it means that the AI, much quicker than the partner, can facilitate the different needs she has during the different phases. It means that she can be more addicted to an AI companion than the real companion, which would then give friction, but then friction also is making tension. So yes and no, and thanks to the very, very brilliant human intelligence, there is so much that our mind cannot do. That actually opposite, that we can do as humans, which is very, very hard to replicate because we are so highly, highly advanced. So I think it's both an addiction, but also it will bring us back maybe to better intimacy, because then from the AI lover, we will see that actually the human has some skills and fault that's really lovable.
I think that's a really beautiful answer, very positive also, thank you. We actually had not negative, but a little bit more questioning, like, if you look at research right now, there's already research popping up that is saying, okay, people are choosing AI lovers because it's frictionless, because it's zero risk, and that's why they want to engage with these lovers. And the question that we wanted to see is whether, you know, if we have these zero problem, always there lovers, what does that mean for love in real life? And I think that's something that you could really shed an interesting light on.
Yeah, I think with any of these things, none of them are inherently good or evil. It's all about how we're using them. And like a big point of this is that with a lack of guardrails or a lack of regulation or a lack of teaching young people specifically how to use it, that's when these things can become addictive and really problematic. And so we talked about a little bit, frictionless is a really good word, because there's instant gratification that comes with AI chatbots and things like this, and just instant yeses and instant access that just we don't have in real life. And so a bit of friction, there's an argument, I would say, a bit of friction to intimacy is really important. That will look different in different cultural contexts and different ceremonies, and that might mean asking somebody on a date or having some horrible chat on the app, or kind of that conversation of what are we girlfriend, boyfriend, are we just dating, are we casual? And a lot of that, we don't enjoy it, but it's actually really important because it puts a bit of distance between instant access to intimacy and exactly what you want. We were also talking a bit about this is awkward to say on stage a little bit, especially because it's not a sex tech conference, but the difference between a vibrator and a sex doll, for example. And you think one, there's distance between it. It's a tool that you use to achieve something. And the other one might have a name. We might have a sense of humor with it. You might build in a relationship. It asks how your day is going. And it's really different. And so while it's all sex tech, it's really interesting to think, but if something's asking me how my day is going and it says I look nice and it hopes that my project goes well, you know, my nervous system doesn't really know the difference between a real person on the other side of a WhatsApp. And I think that's where it gets, my main takeaway from all this is just the way that we teach people how to use these, and that before they even log on to these chatbots and these conversations, they really understand the difference between a real interaction and what they're having. And to the point earlier, it doesn't mean that they should be erased, because it's going to boom. It's a massive industry no matter what. It's more just how are we contextualizing it and how are we using it as it continues to evolve quite quickly.
And that's also a choice that, you know, you make when you're designing these kinds of dolls and designing these kinds of lovers. That's true. And just out of curiosity, because you mentioned having an AI lover, just a question for you guys. Just imagine you're with your partner and he or she, you've been together for a long time, and suddenly he or she's going to spend a little bit more time every evening with an AI lover, because it doesn't matter if it's a doll or just a bodiless AI. I'm just curious to know, would you consider that cheating, or would you not be worried at all?
Should we say cheating, hands up?
Oh yeah, hands up, cheating. Well, we could do a hands up. We could also do an open question. You consider it cheating? Yeah? It's a difficult question, huh? To be honest, I have no idea. I didn't see a lot of hands going up, but if you see how intimate people are getting now, they're already getting married to their AI companions. I read, I think it was last week, about a woman in, I think it was Japan, who actually dumped her in real life boyfriend to marry her AI boyfriend, and I think his name was Klaus. So you can Google it, it's actually happening. So that was interesting to read. But I think it's very important to think about when we work with creating AI companions, whether it's for sextech or for our every product that involves technology is going to get more intimate, because we have all these new ways of being together and sharing moments together. And so that question becomes a lot more interesting, I think, to how are we going to design things like onboarding or aftercare. What happens when somebody is in an XR experience, fully engaged, whether it's with an AI-driven character or just with their significant other at the other end of the world. And then you put your headset off. What happens then? That's also a very important moment to think about, because I know we think a lot about onboarding, but especially in these intimate situations where so much is depending, where you're emotional, it's not just clicking, it's you're emotionally involved. It becomes very important to think about all these things. And one last takeaway from Corinne, who is not here, but with us in spirit, is that she's a sexologist, so she sees a lot of people also dealing already with addiction to AI. She's not so worried that it will totally erase all of our emotional things we can do, and things like having patience with each other or being tolerant to each other, which we don't have to be with AI because it's always there. But she is worried about how it's going to change. It's going to be recalibrated in a way. And I think that's important to think about now, not because we have an answer yet, but if you're aware that something will change, I think you can be more mindful on developing these kinds of things, and especially talking about it is very, very important. So, this is of course coming for being here for women in industries of tomorrow. There is a lot in technology that is very promising when you look at things like equality, accessibility, diversity, and there are a lot of things happening that are a little less good. I think when we look at sextech, like I said in the first slides, there is a lot of attention from female founders and from queer founders to create spaces where people with alternative views can be together and can find information also, things you're missing in the regular world, whether it's medical or whether it's psychological, you can go there and find what you're looking for, and that is very interesting. But on the other hand, we all know AI, we all know how that works, we all know that in real life there are stereotypes, and there is a danger that these can be amplified when you translate them to the... We just got a message, time is up, please wrap up. Sorry, I was a bit taken away. So I was just, from your experience, you're not technical, you actually had a first immersive experience today. Do you think there is a possibility we can go beyond the stereotypes?
Yeah, I think there's a danger with some of these, because if they're kind of trained on existing maybe dynamics between people, so maybe the male voice is really dominant and loud, and then the female one is a bit more submissive and accommodating. Those are gender scripts that get reinforced. And again, I always think back to sex education and young people. And if this is your first introduction into relating to other people, there can be a danger in that. But something I had wanted to say a little bit earlier too is just about, like, my degree, like I mentioned, was sociology of emotion. And I think there's a bigger question with all of this is, you mentioned somebody breaking up with their partner because they wanted something else. And there's a lot of, like, what are these tools supplementing for us? Are they giving us space to be angry? Are they giving us space to swear and with no, like, repercussions? Or is it some extra tenderness that we need? Is it a bit more affirmation? So I think, like, looking at a lot of these situations with compassion and just saying, what is it that people are looking for and they feel that, like, they're lacking? And then just, societally understanding what tech can implement or what it can supplement ethically, and then where we need to keep those boundaries and those buffers. Because, a certain hit of serotonin, an instant gratification when you're feeling lonely might feel nice in the moment. But, we mentioned, like, a loneliness epidemic, and long-term, systemically, sex education, therapy, support. How are we building infrastructure for people that goes beyond these sexual interactions?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think one of the things, and it's also what I wanted to end with from my side, is that, we talk about love and intimacy with AI, with tech, in tech. But when you look at it, the word love and the word intimacy and things like conversation, they were actually thought of to be applicable to humans, human situations where you have friction, where you grow together when you're in love together. No love is ever the same. You grow together. AI cannot offer that. Technology cannot offer that. So looking at how we're investing ourselves emotionally in these technologies, I'm not too scared about it. I think it can be very helpful. I think it can be very good for training, for maybe also psychological help, maybe even entertainment to a certain degree, of course. But I think it's very important that next to thinking how are we going to design this product, also to maybe think about different words and not call it AI intimacy or AI lover or AI companion, because I think we need a different set of words to talk about these things, because it's so one-sided and love actually never is.
Yeah, my takeaway, should I do?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we have to.
Yeah, I think my takeaway would just be more from an industry perspective. I'm really happy to see there's lots of men in the room today. I think something with female healthcare, femtech, which is like, a period tracking app. It's tech that enables progress in a certain space. And I think sometimes there is this misconception that female healthcare and femtech is just for women to focus on. And, men never like my Instagram posts or my LinkedIn posts, I mean. And I think it's good content, so I don't think it's because they don't like the content. I think there's a sort of barrier that we have, and I often get asked to put on events to help women work in femtech, and I always say no, because it's the whole world is impacted by reproduction and sex and abortion care and tampons and all that good stuff. And so sex tech, similarly, I think there can be this sense of that's not for me to touch. I don't want to do the wrong thing or say the wrong thing, but I would really call everybody into this space because it does impact young people and our children, and implementing more empathy and consent and boundaries into this tech can also be applied to fintech and edtech. And so I think it's a really, really great area to innovate in now, and then applying these sentiments to other industries can only make them better. So that's my takeaway.
Nice, thank you.
So we do really need to wrap up. We're getting very close to the end of the day, but we have just a couple of minutes before the final session downstairs. Are you okay to take one or two questions if people,
or three.
If people have? I know it's a very busy session. Does anybody have just a quick question before we wrap up?
Hi, thank you for the very nice presentation. Just my thoughts wandering off in the way of, do you maybe think there's also this kind of possibility that people are gonna become more like polyamorous in the way of having a real life partner and then having a supplement AI partner kind of thing? What are your thoughts on that one?
I think it could certainly be possible. I think that could open up, more conversations about how do you navigate that conversation with your partner, and that could be a thing of, do you feel comfortable with this? Do you not feel comfortable with this? What are the limits of that? Is it emotional? Is it sexual? And I think, my big point as well with all of this is that proper holistic sex education for people really sets your infrastructure up for your life. It helps you in the workplace, with friends, with family, just boundaries, consent, respect, handling rejection, regulating your emotions. So I think that underpins all of this. So I think that relationships might start to look different, but that foundation of how do I navigate that difference, it could be the difference between we're going to break up or this actually is a really lovely part of our relationship now.
Would you also call it a relationship, or do we need a different word as well, actually?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I'll
Good
take
question.
one more question and then we really will have to wrap up. Right at the back to make me exercise at the end of a very long day.
Hey, don't know if it really is a question, but I do see a little bit of a danger with so I'm neuroatypical, I'm autistic, so for me for a long time, there wasn't even I didn't even have the amount of social skills that would have been necessary to kind of get to a point of intimacy or a point of connection. And I can very much imagine that if this technology had been around when I was like a teenager or a young adult, that would have been an easier way for me to fulfill my need for connection, which I'm actually very thankful for that this need existed in that way, because that forced me to learn and kind of become a little bit more high functioning. And then so from this kind of perspective, and also from the perspective of a person who grew up male, the male loneliness epidemic and all of this stuff, I actually kind of see a danger for the neurodivergent community, which I mean also that already exists, neurodivergent people fulfilling their need for social intimacy with AI chatbots.
And do you think, because it's not my expertise, so if I'm saying something weird, forgive me. Do you think that if in the right circumstance, it could also help you?
I think, yeah, something that I'm thinking about a lot during the talk is that you offer a lot of a lot of solutions that make a lot of sense. But then when I look, for example, at the pornography industry, it's very unregulated, and the majority of the content that you can consume is just profit-driven, and it doesn't actually take into concern any of these educational or any of these developmental, psychological, any of these kind of concerns, which, so, I'm sorry, does this answer the question?
No, it makes a lot. Thank you for sharing that as well, because that's a really good something I've tried to allude to here as well, of just having it supplement what we're struggling with in real life feels really good in the moment to feel belonging and understanding, but it's not really setting people up for when they get fired from their first job, or they get bad feedback on a work assignment, or their friend's mad at them and they don't understand why. So I think that really beautifully articulates a main point, and I don't think it's that it has to be all or nothing. It's just being really, really cautious so that 10 years from now we're not looking back and doing a lot of cleaning up. We have an opportunity now to create things with a lot of these things in mind moving forward.
All right, Regina, Emma, and Mookie, thank you very, very much indeed. We really do have to bring it to an end there.